Jim, but not as we know it.
How dare you? Are you just talking to yourself?
The BashCast, late, and live. Coming up in this week's BashCast Late and Live, we answer questions from the last episode. The EV of EVs, Tom gets scammed by a car salesman. Anthony Kaminskis was trending above Prince Andrew. Let's look at the story from a different perspective. Polymarket, prediction markets have hit America, but are they the American dream? The NFL, we have hit the middle of the season of the NFL, so we take a look at edges and speak to BBC and Guardian journalist Ryan Baldy. The return of a segment that was an old favourite. That's right, it's Why You're a Prick. Legal Hour. When should you take a bookmaker to court and when should you suck it up? Golf doubles. Smart Betting Club do a golf doubles special on the same week that I miss out on £33,000 by the click of a button. And finally, my credibility. Has it been ruined? We'll discuss all of that and more on the BashCast Late and Live this evening. That's right. It was me. BashCast Late and Live. On a Thursday night. Welcome back to the BashCast. This is live, going out on the YouTube. You can phone me on the BashCast. I very much encourage it. Have in the last 3 weeks you called me a scammer, a fraud. Do you have a question, a joke? Why don't you get in touch with me live and we'll talk about it mano a mano. Nothing to be scared about here. No scream masks are going to appear between now and the end of the program. You can phone me live. 0203 901 7895. That phone number is 0203 901 7895. You'll need the meeting ID and the password. They're in the YouTube video description below. I won't be repeating them again, just one time at the beginning of the BashCast. The meeting ID is 844 0341 3392. No participant code. The password to talk to me is 083023. I will not be taking any calls for the first half an hour. You can call, but you'll sit in a waiting room and you won't get on. We've got stuff to talk about. Between 8:30 and 10 o'clock, you can phone up live. Talk to me on the BashCast. That phone number again, for anyone that wants to dial in, and I encourage you, please phone in. Ask me anything. Is 0203 901 7895. Again, for anyone watching live, and this isn't for people who are watching on demand, and by the way, 92% of people listen to the BashCast or watch the BashCast on demand outside of the 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Thursday night window. 92%. The 8% that are watching it live or listening to it live have the opportunity to win a BashCast mug. It's in the safe just now. Here is the BashCast mug. You can drink out of this mug with your right hand, but not only that, works on your left hand as well. We have the Bookie bashing logo. We have the Bookie bashing name on both sides. It's a beautiful, beautiful mug. It's been won 3 times, twice by the same person. He didn't get a second mug. I'm not going to lie. Not made of money. But it has been won twice. The second mug, I think, arrived today, or it might be arriving tomorrow. Sorry, it wasn't our fault. We're not in charge of delivery, so don't blame us. But it is on the way. If you haven't got it yet, make sure you take a picture of the mug. tweet us, tag us, let everyone know about the mug. Can you buy the mug? Someone's asked me if you can buy the mug. No, you can't buy the mug. You can win the mug, but you can't buy the mug. That's just the way it's going to be. It's going back in the safe just now. It's a prime piece of commodity. We're just going to close that. We're going to come up with a quiz. Now, I looked at a couple of things because it's Europa League tonight. That's right. I went big on things to happen in the Nottingham Forest game, and so I'm miserable because that finished 0-0. So I had my choice of Europa matches, but also PGA as well as that, right? So amazingly titled Worldwide Technology Championship. It just brings images of corporate exuberance, doesn't it? Is in play just now. And so I thought about something to do with maybe Seamus Power, David Ford, or in the Europa League. I mean, I'm desperately waiting. Flash is so bad. I have kind of been stalling just now because I'm waiting for Flash to like not have the blank screen and tell me who's playing right now. I could have done, but I've got to BBC instead. I've sacked it off. No, there's literally no British teams. Oh, Villa are playing Maccabi Tel Aviv. I know that because there's a lot of police in force in Birmingham today. Could have done something in the Villa, Maccabi, Tel Aviv. Good luck to both teams in that. Flash, by the way, still sitting there with a blank screen. What works on Flash? The adverts. Oh, I mean, all the Parry Match, Betway, Ladbrokes adverts are working. You just can't tell me who. And of course, there's a Bet365 advert there and there and there and there, and a midnight advert there. Flash used to be such a good site. It's just appalling just now. And then the BetMGM advert at the top with Chris Rock. Could do something in the Villa match. Like I might have said, what is Seamus Power going to shoot on the front nine? But both of those things, there's like quite a finite number of answers to them. And for something as prestigious as the mug, we need it to be a little bit more complicated than that. So I do have a question, but we're going to get to it after the first segment. So you're just going to have to wait. As long as you're listening after the first segment, I know you'll have buckled in and you'll have stayed. And so you'll be able to win the BashCast mug today. Thank you, soundboard. Got lots of new gadgets and toys to play with this week, so I'm just getting used to them. But at least the correct audios. I hope the audios and the jingles are sounding better. They should be. We got a lot to get through today. As always, I don't think I'm going to get through all 9 agenda items, but we have 9 agenda items to get through tonight. So we are going to kick off with the first segment, as always, which will be answering questions from the last BashCast and anything that has come since. Gambling and chat. And gambling and chat. Gambling and chat. Gambling and chat. Gambling and chat. Lovely marketing manager Vivi is manning YouTube right now. If you ask a question, she can forward it to me. I may or may not be able to get round to it tonight. If I don't get round to it tonight, I will get round to it on the next BashCast. By the way, when is the next BashCast? I wanted to do it fortnightly because I'm never doing anything on a Thursday night. Last Thursday was my daughter's 10th birthday, so I couldn't do it. Well, I could do it, but I wasn't going to. In 2 weeks' time, I've actually got something to do. And so it's kind of, it's going to be 3 weeks, which is going to be the 27th of November. And the Christmas lights might just be up by then. So it could be a Christmas special. So, well, you know, it should be every 2 weeks, but just bear with me. It's going to be 3 weeks this time. Any thoughts on Polymarket? Asks, who asked this? Jerry. If they ever expand their offering to UK sports and horse racing, is there hope for a new golden age of exchanges? Well, Jerry, segment 4 of the BashCast tonight, it might be, by the way, segment 5, depending on how long it takes to get there, will be on Polymarket. So bear with me. Let's park that because we're going to actually do it as a bigger segment, okay? Daniel asks, is there any chance that you could get additional golf tournaments onto the bookie bashing golf metric, i.e. the LPGA and some of the lesser ones? It's a very good question. The answer is no. So the quality of data that exists in golf is a real sliding scale. And we looked at the PGA, and you can get quite a lot of information about the PGA around strokes gained, driving distance, and things like that. Once you're even to the secondary tour, which some might argue is, well, some might argue it's the Asian, some might probably argue it's the European Tour slash DP World Tour, some might argue it's the 72-hole live. Once you're there, you're much less data, even on the DP World Tour. And once you hit the Ladies Tour, there's this tournament in Denmark, the Scandinavian Mixed, and when we used to put the metrics graph together manually for that, trying to get hold of metrics for strokes gained for the ladies is so difficult. It's not impossible. The problem is it's about automating it. I mean, we really struggled, excuse me whilst I play with this AirPod, it's not in properly. We really struggled to do something even for the Ryder Cup because we had to do something tailored for it because the y-axis wasn't the outright winner. So I would love to. If you want to go and look elsewhere, I would encourage you to, because I don't have any plans to do the LPGA or anything like that. I would recommend Fantasy Labs in America. Check first if they cover it, but they have like an awesome amount of information and data there, both current and historical data that can be used to determine predictive trends for various tournaments. A very good place to go to find out if you want to rank or weight, you know, driving accuracy over driving distance, scrambling, that kind of thing, how important each metric has done historically, both at each course and at each tournament. Often, though, you'll get courses and tournaments that haven't had anything, in which case you're playing a little bit of Bayesian. Joe 1999. It's a cross-reference to the last BashCast. Joe 1999. Tom, what's the most you can get on at bookies nowadays, out of curiosity? Online, 0.0. Someone pass me the bag.
Who's got the bag? Who's got the bag?
It's been years since I could get anything on an online bookmaker, so I bet at exchanges and in shops, and I can sometimes with shops when the odds are a little bit lower, you got to be smart. So how do we get around the fact that I want to bet? I mean, yeah, how do I at 4 to 6, but I want to bet large enough? The problem with shops is bookmakers are scared of the amount of money going over the counter, so they have favored long shot bias like the rest of us. They'll happily take £10 at 1,000 to 1 and they won't even blink. But would they take £100,000 at 1 to 10? No, they wouldn't, even though it's the same amount of liability for them. So you do have you run into problems. It's a lot easier to stake at higher odds than it is to stake at lower odds. How do we deal with that? Split it up and cover it over different shops, maybe with your mates. Something technically you're not meant to do, something you can do that is within the rules, is compound those bets into multiples. You don't need to stake as high if, for example, Arsenal are 4 to 6. Really difficult to bet on them at 4 to 6 just on their own. But all of a sudden, I could have 100 different trebles with Arsenal and other teams, and you add up the individual stake in all of those trebles, and all of a sudden, I've got a decent sized stake on Arsenal, and I've compounded them because I think that they're value. So I can get, you know, I dropped 4 figures in the shops on the weekend when I was up in Nottingham playing poker in Betfred. Didn't even blink. And then other times you go into a shop, you get a jobs worth manager, you try and put 200 quid into the machine, and they ask you what you're doing and for source of wealth. A lot of the time it depends who you run into and what kind of mood they're in and things like that. But I think your question was about online soft bookmakers, and so the answer is 0. Another question I'm going to park if that's okay, but somebody says at a YouTube comment, I'd like to hear more about the legal actions that you've taken. Have you ever detailed those on the podcast? Yes, I have, but I acknowledge I've done 235 episodes of the BashCast, and so it's likely that it's buried away in a historical one. I probably couldn't even dig out which ones they are. They go on to ask, were they all major high street firms? Did they get as far as court or concede at mediation or earlier? Did you consider using IBAS? Have you ever? How did you lose a case everyone else won? So that's going to be section 7 of the BashCast today because, again, I saw the question. I thought I'm going to make an agenda item on it. Just got to answer one quickly. Did you ever consider using IBAS? Like a decade ago, I had the worst experience with IBAS with Coral. And Coral weren't paying me out, and I don't even know, it's lost in the midst of time why they weren't paying me out, but I was sure that I was in the right. So I initially back then decided I was going to take them to IBAS. It was over 10 years ago. Went to IBAS, and they needed a particular reference number from Coral. So I went back to Coral and said, listen, I need this number from you. They wouldn't give it to me. I went back to IBAS. They wouldn't go any way forward without this number. So I was like, well, of course Coral aren't going to give me this particular number, this reference number, because the case just goes nowhere if they don't give it to me. But it was ridiculous that IBAS go, Coral has to give you X. And Coral go, well, we're not going to give it to you. And therefore, the case can't move forward. From that moment, I just decided I wasn't going to use IBAS. I always staked that in those days, anyway, high enough that it was worth my time or worth some time or worth the time of somebody to go to the small claims court. And that's what we did. And we will discuss that in section 7 today. And finally, Mike says, I see in your videos that you'll often place golf doubles on, say, 12 players in shop. I have been trying to start with doubles in shops and had no joy. I've rarely seen any plus EV golfers on the tracker at the same time at Betfred and Coral. Are you seeing 6+ good bets on each tournament? Or do you take some thin negative EV ones too? Looks like you're onto a great thing here. Also, I see the tracker shows some huge EV after a golf tournament starts. Do you recommend taking these? I recall someone saying it's not a good idea. Right, okay, 2 different questions there. First of all, recently, not including this week, things have been thin. There's been weeks with just a single tournament. It's the season end. We've had the Ryder Cup. We've had the Asian Tour, which is going to attract less liquidity. We have had random tournaments in Japan on the DP World Tour where half the field are new players that people don't know anything about, and the tournament starts in the middle of the night. All of these things add up into it being unusual compared to a tournament or a series of tournaments in March, April, May. With Betfred, we have noticed that they've been offering a little bit less value, but that's because they're deviating their shop coupon from online. So we've sorted something out where we're able to get their shop coupon now onto our tracker. The issue with that is that we don't monitor cuts. We can't know them. And as always, if you bet early, you'll get the bigger prices, but you have more uncertainty because it's earlier in the life cycle of the market. You have more uncertainty, less confidence, but higher EV. Closer to the off, you have more certainty, higher confidence, but lower average EV. Let's just mute my phone because the Christmas cottage is not relevant right now, James. Now, this week, there was plenty of value. If you're not seeing value, did you go very early on a Tuesday? The markets weren't very liquid. I don't know when this guy went. Switch around your data metrics. You can go from default to LPM, things like that. Just have a play. But, I mean, I always go like 5 to 6 p.m. on a Wednesday. It's a sweet spot. 2 of my kids are in gymnastics. And there was a decent amount of value in both tournaments to get on there. And for once, the Ladbrokes machines just took it without asking a question. Didn't have to stand there like a lemon. Didn't get knocked back. Haven't been able to edit the video because mega busy. Went to a fireworks display last night. So got on the bets, went to a fireworks display, came home, deal with the kids. I'm shattered by the end of the day. And then all day today, I'm preparing for the BashCast. You know that I'm actually talking for 2 hours on my own. So I do need to get the video up. So after time alert, Richard Stern and Kazuma Kabori were both value, and I mean good value, at 200 to 1 at Ladbrokes at 5:30 p.m. yesterday, and they're both joint leaders in Abu Dhabi. I mean, I'm not expecting either of them to win, but if they could just place, that would be lovely. Sometimes it's that place at 200 to 1 is the only thing that you're looking for. And so, yeah, there was a decent amount of DP World. Like, I think I've got like 3 different golf double bet slips, which I will post at some point. And maybe 5, 6, 7 from the one tournament and 3, 4, 5 from the other tournament. So yeah, what was your second question? Oh, in play. Yes, you can bet in play. I'm gonna have to, I've put my phone on airplane mode, but it's still coming through. Is it because Wi-Fi's on? Yeah, you can bet in play. You just can. Sometimes if it's huge EV, it's because the back odds have dropped at the bookmaker because he's got a birdie, and they just haven't caught up on the tracker. So, we think it's mega EV at 100 to 1. You go to the bookmaker, it's 25 to 1. Well, of course it's mega EV, and it doesn't matter because you can't bet on it anyway. But that's the nature of in-play. Love to do in-play stuff at Bookie Bashing. It's just our things don't calculate it and move fast enough to be reactive enough to do in-play edges. So there we go. And one that's come up, let's do a live one. I haven't read it, but I saw that someone's asked a question. What's the thoughts on the recent £200 max bet on Double Delight Hat-Trick Heaven in store? Hadn't heard of it, and had a bet that was larger than £200 recently. It didn't win, so I don't know. So if that's the thing, then that's news to me. So I'll have to do a little bit more exploration on what's going on there before I can comment, because there'll be ways around that. £200 is fine. They're asking to turn the volume down for the sound effects. Okay, fine. Give me a second. I'm gonna have to load up a thing. All right, let's take it to 60%. I mean, that did still feel very loud. I don't think I can, is the answer. I don't think I know how to turn it down. Like, this is down at 2%. That didn't seem like it was any quieter, did it? So, is it this? Oh, hold on, let's just do one more. No. Mark! I'm going to have to get Mark, I'm afraid. Mark's going to have to come and sort this out. I'm going to the pub with Mark tomorrow. He's going to have to do it. I don't know how to. I wish I did. But it's too complicated for me. I'm not a Champions League audio engineer. So, sorry about that. Right, that was a 2% we can't hear. Oh, so is it really that? Ah, right. So hold on. Wait a minute. We're doing things. So, right, let me try this. Tell me this now. This is now 45%. Tell me if this is fine, Vivi. Is that okay? Are we good? Are we good to move on? 40%. It's good. Right. We're moving on. Gambling and chat. We've had that topic break. Anthony Kaminskas. Wait a minute. I've completely forgotten about the BashCast mug. Let's not forget about the BashCast mug. The BashCast mug this week is going to go to the person. Now, I've got to tell you, there's already an answer. So it's not like you are providing me with inspiration. I already know the answer. I have a new best friend. Isn't he absolutely stunning? He's great. Check him out. Check his eyes out. Look at that. To win the BashCast mug, this guy has got a name. Guess his name. The first person to guess my friend's name has won the BashCast mug this week. I'm going to not have a look at what Vivi's telling me for the next few minutes. And I'm going to get on with this next segment. But it was coming up to 8:25. And in 5 minutes, you will be able to phone the BashCast. If you want to phone us, you can phone us on 0203 9017895. Details for how to join me live on the BashCast are underneath this video. You can chat to me. You can chat to this guy, if you know his name. He's fantastic, this thing. Absolutely love him. Anthony Kaminskas, AK Bets, was trending above Prince Andrew. Hold on, that's not the... Not saying anything about Prince Andrew there. He took a little bit of flack recently. Now, I have met Anthony Kaminskas. He seems like quite a nice guy. He was one of the trusted people I sent my £20,000 £3 lucky 15 bet slip to. I wasn't prepared to share it with people that I didn't know on social media and things like that, because it was just the kind of thing that I thought could attract too much negative attention to me. I have been talking about how I'm able to bet in shops and still be laid bets, and I've been doing this for a relatively long time. I felt like if I shared that bet slip with everybody, that carried a risk perhaps of shortening the amount of time I would be laid bets for unnecessarily. I naively thought that my word might be good enough. That was naive on my part. And so when there was a backlash with a lot of people saying I'm making the story up, I sent the bet slip over to 3 or 4 people who are trusted names in the industry. One of them was Anthony Kaminskas. Now, he talked about it on his podcast. I want to play a clip. The reason I want to play a clip isn't about me. I kind of don't care if you believe me or not. It's more, there's a bog story, a best odds guaranteed story that was read out afterwards that I just think is brilliant. It's something that I try and retell to mates in the pub. So have a listen to this. This is from the AK Bet podcast a couple of months ago.
Connor asking AK, have you seen the famous £3 lucky 15 bet that returned £20,000 with 3 winners? Has this happened recently? AK, have you seen?
Yeah, that was the thing going around Twitter there recently. Just someone I know, Tom from Bookie Bashing, just made a post that he won 20 grand off a bet and hadn't realised, and got an absolute pile on for
I saw that.
Yeah, I have seen the slip. Yeah. It's but I learned I still have my relapses now, but I learned a long time ago that replying to some of the dumbest members of society on Twitter is probably not the most optimal use of time. Yeah, I think Tom's pretty.
Did he have the first 3 winners?
Yeah, it was the first 3, I think. Yeah, and his 4th one was actually leading 3 out as well, from memory. So yeah, and it was a £3 each way, lucky 15.
That's the thing about affordability checks these days. Because you know, if he stands to win an absolute fortune, he can't take an absolute fortune out of it on an exchange, because if he loses five figures in isolation, they're going to come after him. So, like I said, that's one of the massive downsides is you can't hedge anymore, and because if you lose, then it could be account closure job.
I have a very good. We might cut this out, but I'll say it anyway. I have a very funny story about a fella who had an accurate, it was either Lucky 63 or something, running up on Bet365, and as genuine as they come, pal of mine. And he had 5 winners, and he had something like 100 grand or 120 grand running up onto the last leg, and it was a race at Carlisle. It's the last race of the day at Carlisle. It was an amateur riders race, right? And I think he took something like 5-4 about the last horse or something, and he was like, "Oh, I've got this bet running up for like 120," and it banked 120 already, and then the last leg is like 5-4, and he was like, "Do you have any money in the machine? Can you lay some of this for me? I want to get out of it, right?" And I was like, "No problem." And I think I had 27k in the machine at the time, right? So I said, no problem, you can use that. I'll lay the horse for you, no problem. So we laid this horse on the show at Carlisle in an amateur riders race and started off laying it at like 6-4 and ended up, the last price we laid was something like 100-30. And it went off 11-4 SP and won. And he got like 600 grand back off the guaranteed price. Like, he got an absolute fortune out of the guaranteed price for us just late. And it was a genuine just trying to hedge, but can't hedge because there's no liquidity. And that was like 5 or 6 years ago. Madness, absolute madness.
That was a friend of mine, was it?
Yeah, I know, a genuine friend of mine. Yeah.
I love that story. I kind of feel like there's an edge there somewhere, maybe a slightly unscrupulous edge that you shouldn't be doing. I don't know. Maybe don't go into those waters, but that's funny as hell. But yeah. Now, Anthony was trending above Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew, of all the people to be trending above. So he must have polarized opinion. And this is because Ian Broderick, who has shared all of this in the public space, so I can talk about it. Okay, it's nothing private. There's no, this isn't a conversation that I wasn't party to that I'm relaying because it was posted on the X forum. He has an email from AK Bets. The subject, we've all received one of these. It's account closure. Now, before I go into this, your name is not Polly, Bones, Harland, Fred, Mush, Edgar Allan Crow is good. Edgar Allan Crow is good. Might be after this. And Skelly. It's none of those. Does have a name. If the name isn't read out, then it's going to go to a tiebreaker question. And the tiebreaker question will be, how many under par will Seamus Power be? I've got to work out how many holes he's going to play by the end of the BashCast. He's going to play 7 more holes before the end of the BashCast. By the 12th hole, what's he going to be? After 5 holes, he's 2 under. Okay? What's he going to be on the 12th hole? Mind you. And, because that's just too easy. What is give me a second. Sam Ryder. Let's do Sam Ryder. So Sam Ryder and Seamus Power are on the same hole. So I want both of their scores on the 12th score. So you got to give me 2. You got to give me Power 6 under. What's his name? Ryder 3 under. Right? Because if it was just one, it's not. There's, I'd have to split the mug 53 ways. So I want both Power and Ryder score on the 12th hole to win a mug, or just give me his name. That's all you have to do. So the email reads: account closure. Hello, Ian. We have made a decision to close your account. We have withdrawn your remaining funds, £60. All your open bets will stand. Please contact us once they settle, and we will withdraw your winnings. You've been removed from marketing, and we won't share your information with third parties. Your information will be deleted from our database after 5 years. That's one. That's an interesting one. It is a regulatory requirement to retain client data for 5 years to comply with the UK Gambling Commission license conditions. Does that mean that my data, all my accounts were closed like a decade or longer ago? Has all my data been deleted from them? I just bet it hasn't. I bet I just couldn't sign up to Bet365 or William Hill tomorrow. Shall I try? I'm not going to try. What's the point? Okay, so Ian shared the screenshot. He said, what heinous act caused this to happen, you might ask? Well, he had £20 anytime touchdown scorer on Dotson at 11-2 and £20 on George Kittle at 2-1. AK were top price on both, according to Odds Checker. What a joke. At AK Bets, at Tony Calvin. If this is loud, put your fingers in your ears now. At William Cherry 559. Where is it? Where's the mug? You got it. You got the right answer. That is correct indeed. I'll share it later. Not this mug. This is my mug. But a mug that has not been drunk out of will be winging its way to you after the show, which technically means tomorrow morning, which might mean tomorrow afternoon, because I'm doing something tomorrow morning. Going wild swimming. Go read the Spectator the Spectator article on wild swimmers. Please send in your email address to... No, please send in your home address to support@bookiebashing.net. And one of these BashCast mugs will be on its way to you, hopefully before Christmas. It's not our fault. I'm not in charge of the courier. It's nothing to do with me. Congratulations, William Cherry 559. Well done. Mug is on its way. So, what a joke. Ian Broderick says. So, is this a laughing matter? Well, the first thing that I thought when I saw this is it's kind of a non-story. It's kind of funny how it was totally blown out of proportion. Not really by Ian Broderick or AK Bets, but everyone else. And I guess there's a narrative around it, but is the narrative important? I think as profitable bettors, we know it. I think as recreational bettors, they've heard of it and maybe have experienced it. I don't know if you remember Bet Victor. Bet Victor came out with his app and they like pushed boosts every now and again to the app. It might be a goal scorer, a horse, whatever. Normally an arbitrage opportunity, but we're talking about back in 2014 here, 2013. So I told my work colleague, mate, just get this app where Bet Victor push these boosts and don't even think about it. Just bet on them and you'll make money. And he did it like 3 times and his account was closed. He couldn't believe his account was closed. I had to kind of explain to him, look, you know, you were going to win with them. They wanted to have other custom from you. What was a bit dumb from Victor was they didn't really make it clear that you can't just use the app. Like, get in touch. And I think if I was them, Victor, I would have gone, look, you're just using the app, which is going to end up being of no use to us. You've got to go and do other things, otherwise we're going to get rid of you. Having said that, if there's tens of thousands of customers, are you going to do that for all tens of thousands of customers? Sometimes it's easier just to get rid of them, right? It's a little bit like, I'm not going to go into bookie bashing, but sometimes it can be, there's a lot of people to deal with simultaneously. And so sometimes we can give a personal service, especially when it's quiet, but when it's very busy, forgive us if we either take a long time to get back to you or give a standard reply to everyone, but there's only a finite amount of hours in the day and it has to be like that. Now, so this confused my old work colleague because he was like, I just didn't think they would get rid of me. They would close my account. They make me feel like I've done something wrong. So it opened his eyes. Now, I think a lot of, or most recreational punters, like I talked to a guy in the school run, total recreational punter. He knows exactly about restrictions. They all know about restrictions. Everybody knows about restrictions. You know, Skybet will argue that 0.01% of accounts are restricted. Everyone knows about restrictions, right? And I think some people think that they're unfair. Now, should Ian Broderick have had his account closed for £20? And this is a lot of people's arguments. It was only £20. Well, so what? Does it matter if it was £20, £2 or £200? If there's a system that says every single bet seems to be not just beating us, but manipulative. And I think this was the case. This was manipulative because John Dotson was a stale price. Now, I'm going to get in trouble and a lot of negative feedback for this, and I'm braced for it. I defended bookmakers at Smart Bash, and there's a lot of people that cannot believe that a punter would ever defend bookmakers when it's a bookmaker versus punter argument. But quite frankly, we've got to be grown up and say that some bookmakers have acted badly, some punters have acted badly. It's not just one side of the fence. There's the occasional bookmaker that will say it's only punters. There's a lot of punters that will say it's only bookmakers. It's not that black and white. It's not that bullion. Now, when it comes to taking stale prices for £20, I wouldn't have thought that that was the kind of thing that you could expect to get away with unless you were my old work colleague. So who is Brodders? Who is Ian Broderick? Well, Ian Broderick, for a long time, ran a football tipping service under the Betting Emporium umbrella. Now, I like Neil Channing, big fan of his work. I like what they do over at Betting Emporium. I like the reasoning under all of the bets that they put out. I saw Brodders' selections at Betting Emporium. He's no longer doing it now, and so what I think about those particular ones, I have some thoughts about the correlations he was using, because there was a lot of both teams to score and over 2.5 alongside winning both teams to score, and that's a nasty Venn diagram that you've got to unpick there a little bit, like tonight's Nottingham Forest to win and have the most shots on target. He knows better. He's experienced in the industry. I don't really care about the fact that it's £20. He knows that, especially as a tipster, you can't be tipping up top price. No tipster worth his salt tips up top price. For weekly golf value, we tip up 3 prices, and if one of them wins, we do not take the top price. We'll take the second one occasionally. Well, it's not the top EV, the second EV. It gets complicated because sometimes the second EV can be a higher price. We're not getting into that now. You know that you can't just be taking top price. And so that's like the first crime. Stale prices are even worse. And was he deliberately taking stale prices? He says no. But as an operator, I can imagine with all of these different accounts, you don't know the difference between someone doing it deliberately and somebody not. And then if they carry some weight in the industry, you've got that double whammy. And then thirdly, you're looking at them going, well, I'm not going to make any money out of them. They seem to be manipulative. What is the long-term benefit to me of spending time on this? And I've done it myself as a service. I've gone, do you know what? At this point, I need to protect myself and even the amount of time that I look at this. I did it today. Someone was emailing me, and then they started getting rude. And then I'm like, the minute you start getting rude with me, I don't need your custom, right? So I think now I'm just going to draw a line under talking to you and dealing with you. And I think a little bit of that happened at AK Bets. It was a Sunday night. There might have been some automation. And so he gets the boot. Would I have done the same in their shoes? Absolutely. What's the benefit to my kids of having someone taking those stale prices? I think announcing that it was a joke should have known better. I was going to say poor form. I can understand the frustration of lashing out, but I think just should have known better. If Ian ever wants to come on here and defend his side, I think that's absolutely fine. He's allowed on. We can hear it, but there are different levels of experience in this game. We're meant to be sort of nearer the top of the profitable better side, the advantage players, the value betters, the guys that are winning, the guys that have got experience. We're not meant to be the guys that are betting on palps, betting on stale prices, betting on mistakes, betting on arbs. We're not those people, because those people we know don't have longevity in the game. It's not unfair to win, but there are various rules that we should be abiding by to separate ourselves away from the 98% of people that are winning that are employing those tactics. You see, what's the stat? I don't know. It's like 95% are losers, 5% are winners, but of that 5%, 4.8% of them are arbitrage players, stale price, things like that. You know, palps, which you're just crazy if you're betting on palps. So on this one, I accept the backlash now. I accept it completely. I think I'm going to have to side with the AK Bets. I think there was a lot of argument that his narrative, the way that he came back to Ian, wasn't great. I sympathise with that, because when I feel like I'm backed against the wall, my narrative isn't great. But again, I don't think he's talking to a recreational and experienced punter. He's talking to someone that can, stand up for himself. So on this one, I'm siding with AK. And when I saw that, it felt like absolutely everybody had their pitchforks out for him. It wasn't really having the pitchforks out for him. It was having the pitchforks out for the industry because everyone's been knocked back, maybe had an account closure, maybe been restricted. So the question is, how do we solve that problem? Well, that's not AK's to solve, and it's not going to get solved. It's good to have the narrative, and it's good to have people talking about it. And I think there is a discussion there to be had. And obviously, everyone knows that we have gone a little bit too far. But where should it be? It's probably not for us to say it's profitable bettors, because if we say relax it a little bit, we're jumping straight in, scooping it all up for ourselves, and that is nothing but self-serving. So the best thing that we can do is listen without really having any suggestions and see what happens about this. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I might be wrong. I think AK turned around and acknowledged that his reaction wasn't good and a mistake had been made. I think that that's honourable of him and wasn't necessary, personally, but perhaps it was. What would you have done if you're running a service and Ian had come in and done that with you? I mean, maybe, as I said before, you could have just sent him an email going, don't do that again. But then to do that, you need to be spending time on it as an individual operator to customer basis. And if you're a small operation like AK Bets, how much time can you spend doing that? You might have a lot of customers. If there's a lot of customers doing exactly the same thing, you might be exacerbated by them. So it's not as clear cut, and it's definitely not as AK is the bad guy. What's the solution and what's the future? I don't have the answers for that, and actually I don't think it's my position to have the answers for that. Gambling and chat. 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 NFL is with us. I'm going to just quickly swap around the agenda a little bit. So we're going to do NFL now for a segment. And then after the NFL, we're going to talk about the legal hour because I want to get that done, and Polymarket, those two things. Let's hope we don't miss out on Why You're a Prick, everybody's favorite segment. So the NFL is it week 10 this week? So roughly the halfway stage of the season if we're including the playoffs. It's been there's been a lot going on. Rule changes and fundamental changes and trending season after season is something that I find absolutely fascinating. They say this is the sport that is the most efficient, with the sharpest syndicates, with the most amount of money placed on it, and the hardest one to get an edge. Does that mean that you shouldn't try? Everybody loves a trier. So this season there has been some fundamental differences, some changes, and I wanted to talk about them. However, I didn't want it to be me talking about them. I wanted someone with a little bit of authority. So we've got someone on. I talked to him earlier, and so I'm going to play the conversation I had with Ryan Baldy. Ryan Baldy is a Guardian and BBC journalist. He is a sports writer. I'm reading a bit of a bio here, with more than a decade's experience covering American football as well as football and basketball. His work's been on the BBC, The Guardian, The Athletic, 442, and World Soccer Magazine. And he's the author of some books, which we will put the link up below the video and talk about afterwards. So Ryan and me had a conversation at 11 o'clock this morning. Now let me figure out how to show you it. Share. Share what? Share this screen. And if you want to call into the BashCast, this is about half an hour long. It'll be 9:20 when it ends. Feel free to phone in then. I want somebody to phone in and have a conversation with me and argue with me and this guy, but do it the other side of the conversation with Ryan Baldy, journalist from the BBC and Guardian, about the NFL. Are you surprised by the Indianapolis Colts this season so far?
Yeah, I was very surprised. I didn't expect them to be very good to begin the season. because there's so much uncertainty for them at quarterback. They went into preseason with what they call a quarterback competition. So they had two guys fighting for the spot, and neither of them looked particularly good. They had Anthony Richardson, who they drafted a few years ago, who had really just disappointed and not developed very much at all. And they brought in Daniel Jones as a free agent from the New York Giants. And now I'm a Giants fan, and Jones has been my quarterback for the previous 6 years. And let's put it this way, I wasn't particularly disappointed to see him go. So I'll tell you all you need to know about his performance levels for the Giants the last 6 years. So I didn't expect them to have the level of quarterback play to be able to elevate them to where they are now. So they really surprised me.
His career in Indianapolis, basically.
Exactly. He went there, signed a deal that was less than half of the average annual value of his Giants deal. It was on about 60 million a year, which is kind of high level backup money, sort of low level starter money. But yeah, he's knocked out of the park the first 8 games anyway. But then last week, which is going to be really interesting to watch going forward. They were beaten last week, and he had 3 interceptions and 2 fumbles, I think, or 2 fumbles and or the other way around, 2 interceptions, 3 fumbles. So he turned the ball over 5 times, which is a lot. You can't win games if you're going to be doing that, and it's going to be interesting the next couple of weeks to see whether that's regression to the mean for Jones or whether it's just a blip and he can continue with his previous level that he's shown so far this season. So yeah, they were a huge surprise. They've been looking statistically. They've been one of the best offenses in NFL history, up there with the 2007 Patriots in terms of the numbers they're producing, which was probably never going to be sustainable for them. The level of talent they've got some very good players. They've got Jonathan Taylor, who's the best running back in the league at the moment, who's been outstanding. They've got a good offensive line, decent wide receivers, and Jones, a quarterback, playing beyond the level that we've seen from him previously. So yeah, it's all about whether they can sustain that, I guess.
I mean, talking about regression to the mean, pre-season they were up for 7.5 wins, and before last weekend's game they were 7-1. So they just need one more game to achieve what they were expected to achieve before the season started.
It's incredible. I'd have taken the under on that as well. Me and one of my friends is a big NFL fan. Every year we send each other the same message, right? What are your predictions for the year based on who's going to win the Super Bowl, who's going to make the Super Bowl, who's the MVP, who's the Rookie of the Year, and we also ask each other who's going to be in contention for the first draft pick in the next year, who's going to have the worst record this year. And I said Indy would be in contention for that. I didn't think they would be the worst team, but I thought they'd probably be bottom 3 or 4. So I was very wrong. So yeah, don't listen to me.
Well, they're going to make the Super Bowl? Is that one step too far?
I would expect it to be. I mean, they made a really big trade the other day at the trade deadline. They gave up 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner, the cornerback from the New York Jets, which is a big move. It fills a position of need for them. Their defensive secretary was one of their weaknesses, and they've gone and got one of the best around, probably a top 5 or 6 guy in a position. But they've given up a lot of draft capital for that. But what that also means is it seems they're committed to Jones going forward. He's only on a 1-year deal. So if they wanted to draft a quarterback in the next 2 years, they've essentially taken themselves out of the running to do that because they've given up their next 2 first-round picks in the draft. So they're pretty much saying Jones is their guy. So it's a big commitment. They're all in on this year and next year. So they certainly seem to believe they can get there. They're going to make the playoffs. They can't kind of not do that now that they've been flying so much. But I would still, personally, when it comes to the crunch, back teams like Kansas City and Buffalo in the AFC ahead of.
Well, you could have got 85-1, which might be fair pre-season. Last traded, well, I don't know. It looks like a market somewhere around 12, 13, 14, so value might have been gone there. But I want to talk to you about a fundamental change this season. It's always interesting when there are fundamental changes to the rules in any sport. In 2009, you had a major change in golf when the PGA changed the loft of the irons, and bettors are scrambling over each other to try and work out if they can find an angle. With NFL, 2018 was quite a big season because not only were, outside of the NFL, all of a sudden a lot of states in America were able to gamble, and prop bets went from infancy to mass market very, very quickly, and everyone was scrambling over each other to see if they can find any inefficiencies in the market. Excuse me, that's my dog just scratching herself. Can you be quiet, please, Lucky? Thank you very much. And then last season we had, 2018, by the way, was that the season as well where they brought in changes to protection to the the quarterback as well?
It sounds about right. Yeah, the roughing the passer and things. You can't really touch them anymore.
Yeah, there was the Brady rule where I think he broke his shoulder or torn a really bad muscle when he got absolutely lampooned. And so no, you can't really go hard on the quarterback, which in turn meant that there were more passing yards, and professional modelers quickly worked out, listen, if the quarterback's not going down as frequently, there's going to be more passing yards in the game. It's quite obvious, but also more points in the game. And then last season you had a change in the touchback where the ball went to the 35-yard line instead of the 25-yard line. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that was quite a big fundamental change. It affects how the game starts. They also had a change to the way teams line up at kickoffs as well. So rather than kind of all starting behind the ball and rushing forward, they line up much more like a conventional play now, where they're all kind of it's essentially two trenches opposite each other in the middle of the field, blocking and trying to get through. With the kick returners far behind them, the theory was that it would lead to more exciting kickoff returns, because they kind of been a bit of a non-factor previously before that, where it was just made more sense for teams to take the touchback. So if they kicked into the end zone, just take a knee and start from the 30, but now the touchback is at the 35, I believe. So it's changed the dynamic of it. More teams are trying to return now and see what they can get, and teams kicking off aren't as willing to kick into the end zone now. They're trying to hit it in that sweet spot, the landing spot. I think it's between the end zone and the 20 or thereabouts, where you kind of force the return. So it's much more of an interesting spectacle for the fans now than it used to be.
Yeah, and so with that has fundamental changes in the territory that the teams are taking up over the match. And if you plot from 2005 up until 2020 the average number of points in a match, it goes from 40 points pretty much linearly up to just a shade under 50 points at the beginning of 2020. Then we have coronavirus, and basically across all sports, I think I take the years 2020, 2021 and 2022 maybe with a pinch of salt. You had empty stadiums, you have so many other factors coming into sport that it's very difficult to include those trends in a 20-year analysis. But then coming into 2024, 2025, we're still sort of this season as well seeing more points than we've seen ever before, which is good for as a spectacle. But again, it's like, has the markets adapted? Has the market sort of identified that there's going to be more points this season or not? Or are there exploits to be made, both in touchdown markets and in overall points? Have we taken the over? But I want to look away from the obvious markets of touchdowns and points, which are shaped to within an inch of their lives by some of the biggest syndicates in the world. I want to look at something different, and that is field goals. What can you tell me about why, as sharp bettors, we should be looking at field goals this season?
Well, what's really interesting about field goals in the last few years is just they've kind of experienced a bit of a boom for several reasons. Just to take a few statistics off the top of my head, so there's for the longest time, the field goal record in the NFL was 63 yards. It was from a guy called Tom Dempsey, who played for the Saints and the Eagles in the 70s and a few other teams. Really interesting character. Was born with no toes on his right foot and no fingers on his right hand. So he essentially kicked with half a foot. He had a modified boot that was about half the size of his standing foot. And he hit a 63-yarder, which was the longest in the NFL. And that record wasn't broken until 2013. So from 1970 to 2013. But since then, we've seen 60-yarders go through the roof, particularly in the last few years. So I just wrote down a stat before we came on. So there have been 46 successful field goals made from 50 yards or longer in NFL history. 28 of those have come since 2018. So in the last 7 years, that's more than half of them have come. There's a few reasons for that, from what I can gather. One being that I think there's more indoor arenas than we've ever seen before. There are 10 arenas in the NFL that either have a closed dome roof or a retractable roof to protect from the weather, so it protects from adverse conditions. Just last weekend, we saw the NFL record broken for the longest field goal. Cam Little from the Jaguars scored a 68-yarder against the Raiders, which again was in an indoor stadium. Longest field goal of all time, broke the previous record by 2 yards. And also earlier this season, we saw Chase McLaughlin from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers score from 65 yards outdoors, which is an outdoor record. So although the fact that there are a lot of indoor stadiums, there are going to be more as well. There are going to be 13 in a few years' time because a few more teams are building new arenas. Although the environment's more controlled in that way, there's still kickers are getting better outdoors too. So we're seeing a real increase in the amount of attempts from long range because there's more belief that kickers can make them now than there used to be. It's seen as less of a risk because the risk with field goals is that if you don't make it, you turn over the ball at the point that the kick is taken. So you could be giving up a lot of territory versus punting and pinning a team back close to their own end zone. So we're seeing, yeah, like I said, we're seeing a lot more coaches kind of taking that on and trusting their kickers to score from distance. Yeah, so we're seeing a real uptick with guys like Brandon Aubrey coming across from soccer as well, who's one of the best in the world. We're seeing a real increase in accuracy too. I was looking at the stats earlier for the highest field goal success percentage all time, and of the top 10, 8 of those players are either currently active or active up until last season. That one being Justin Tucker, who is regarded as one of the all-time greats, who's out of the league now for kind of reasons of personal misdemeanors, let's say, some legal issues. So 8 of the top 10 are current players for the highest all-time field goal percentage.
As well, like for the top 10 players, if we're looking at 80%.
Yes. So number one, Cameron Dicker the kicker from the San Diego, not San Diego, not San Diego anymore, the LA Chargers. He's completing at 94%, a 94% clip at the moment, which is ridiculous. That's number one by quite a distance. Brandon Aubrey of the Cowboys, who as I mentioned a minute ago, is a former MLS soccer player, is 90%. And then if you go down to number 9, Kami Fairbairn, he's let's see, 86.9. So yeah, that's the kind of clip that they're scoring field goals at now, with built into that the fact they're taking them from longer ranges as well.
Yeah. Now, I wonder if there's going to be any change to the overall number of points that are in a match if more field goals are being attempted, because you might argue that if the field goal range is now longer, fourth down attempts where they go for it 4 and 2 and it's late in the game, they might just turn around and say, well, we'll take the field goal, whereas previously that wasn't possible, but now we've got a chance.
Yeah, it's an interesting trade-off because the analytics also in most situations will tell you to go for it because the possibility of 6 points plus an extra point after a touchdown attempt is more than double that of a field goal. So it can take you twice as many drives down the field to get a touchdown as it does to get a field goal. So the analytics in most situations will tell you to go for it. And there are teams like the Lions who are really aggressive with that, like and the Eagles who've got the tush push, which is probably going to be legislated out of the game next year, which would be another interesting talking point from a betting perspective too, with their fourth down efficiency. But you've got teams who are really aggressive, and then you've got others who have an outstanding kicker like the Cowboys who can trust their kicker from 50 yards as if it's a chip shot from 30.
Yeah. But my big question is why? Why are we seeing longer kicks? Why are we seeing higher percentages in 2025?
Yes, I did a piece on this for The Guardian last year. I was just looking back over it. I spoke to a few former kickers in the NFL and current coaches to get their views on why they think it could be. And there are several factors. One that I mentioned is the conditions are probably improving. There's an interesting change this year to the rules regarding the special kicking balls that you use. So the balls that they kick with are different to the balls that are used in general play.
I call it K-balls.
K-balls, that's right, versus a cue ball, which stands for quarterback ball. So
just to be clear, 'cause I didn't know about this until I did a little bit of research before talking to you. You have 2 balls in the game. One of them's used during normal play, but when it comes to kicking, is this both the extra point conversion and the field goals, or just the field goals?
Yeah, any kicking, I believe it's the same one. Yeah,
and it's literally a different ball.
Yeah. So what happened back in 1999? They introduced legislature to stop tampering with the cables and stop teams trying to soften them through the week. There were all kinds of old stories about teams trying to like bake them in an oven or soak them overnight and things, because the teams used to have these balls on site and they could do what they want with them through the week. So the rule came in 99 to say that from now on the manufacturer will send the cables for that week directly to the hotel that the referees are staying at, and the kickers won't see the cables until the day of the game. This year, going into this season, that changed. Now, although it's still governed what you can do with them, they will be inspected pre-game. kickers now get to use them through the week and practice them, so they have that familiarity with the balls. They can kind of work them to soften them and familiarize themselves with the feel of them as well for kicking. So I guess we'll probably want to see a bigger sample size to see what kind of effect that has had over the next year or two. But there are a lot of people who believe that it is making the kicker's life easier for sure. Then outside of that, training practices, one of the kickers I spoke to, he pointed to his iPhone when I said, "What do you think are some of the biggest factors between kicking quality improving?" He said, "This little thing here, because anybody practicing can record themselves and look at their technique and review it, which wasn't as available to people coming up in the 90s or 80s before them." Where if you wanted to have a video camera, you'd have to have someone to be able to stand and hold it, and you have to have access to it, and then go back through the tape and rewind it and clip it and things. Whereas now you can get an iPhone stand and watch yourself kick 30 balls through the post from distance and assess your technique. You can work remotely with coaches as well now, which didn't used to be a thing. So the quality of coaching and feedback is greater now than ever. I think we're probably also going to see more players with a soccer background. I think we've always seen an overlap between kickers who played soccer in their past because it's a natural overlap. But I think we're seeing people who played to a higher level in soccer now coming over because it's actually something I'm working on for the Athletic at the moment. I'm looking at how many soccer players should maybe consider giving NFL kicking a try based on Brandon Aubrey's example. So the average annual salary in MLS in America is around $400,000, whereas the average annual salary of a kicker in the NFL is about 2.2 million. Obviously, there are far fewer positions available as an NFL kicker. There are 32 teams in the league, and they have one starting kicker each, whereas MLS has, I think, over 400 players on roster. But if you show a particular talent for it, it might be worth financially making that step across. So we're probably seeing a higher quality of athlete attempt to be a kicker these days as well. So all those factors are coming in to kind of feed this boom.
Targeting soccer players as well, because in soccer, unless you're the keeper taking a goal kick, you rarely hoof the ball the length of the pitch as far as you can. Of course, the obvious comparison is rugby union. And we've had Travis Clayton, Louis Rees-Zammit, Christian Scotland Williamson from just down the road in Worcester, went over to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Christian Wade. None of them really, there's no standout kicker that I can think of in the NFL that comes from a rugby union. It just seems like that would be an obvious transition. Any idea?
Yeah, it does. I'm not sure whether that would be down to, I'm trying to word this carefully, a skill issue, perhaps, with it being smaller balls and the difference of timing and things that maybe you have a more innate feel for the timing of a field goal kick if you're a soccer player, where you have to get your shot off under pressure with the players coming at you like you do in the NFL, where you only have a split second to do it, where it's all timed with the snap, versus in rugby where it's kind of a closed situation where you have as much time as you need to get the ball through the post. Yeah, and then the kind of the deftness of touch, because it's not all about kind of hoofing it between the posts. It's about measuring your distances, your angles as well, and putting enough on it to get it where it needs to be.
Yeah, I'm always following the guys going over from the English Premiership, or the Rugby English Premiership, over to the NFL. I would have loved Louis Rees-Zammit to have actually, I think everyone had a lot of hope that he could have been a star over there because he was a star over here. But one thing I was like, a lot of people said, why is he risking his career with Gloucester and the Lions, to go over there? And then someone did a stat that if he made it as a wide receiver or a running back over there, he could have earned in a fortnight what he probably would have done it over his entire career.
Yeah,
in rugby.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's vast differences. Okay, so we have basic changes to the rules and the ball, you're saying, which has seen a massive change in field goal percentages. And the obvious line as a professional bettor that we should be looking at is basically, are the bookmakers, are the markets, are the exchanges, I'm not sure if field goals on the exchanges, I'd have to look that up, but are they using last season's lines, which might have been copied from the pre-season before, or have they adjusted them? Because if they're, and they are often very guilty in a secondary and tertiary market like field goal, guilty of not looking at it too hard because there's very little liquidity in these markets. How many field goals per game have we been having on average, do you think, if you have any stats on it? And what are we getting now? What is the actual tangible difference?
Yeah, I don't have the stats now, I'm afraid. I would imagine, like I said, because there's this trade-off between teams who are really aggressive and like to go for it on fourth down versus kicking a field goal. The actual amount of field goals taken, I would imagine, isn't skyrocketing the same way. What the difference is the range and the accuracy of the field goals. So
It's more field goal
success rates. Yeah, success and range is the two things. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And interesting. So at Bookie Bashing under our X tries, we've got the Raiders Broncos, which is X tries, by the way, for anyone listening. We bundle together X touchdowns and X tries because it's the same model used for both of them. We've got the Raiders Broncos tonight. 3.45, so 3.5 field goals in the match, split almost exactly. 1.75 for the Denver Broncos, 1.7 for the last Vegas Raiders. So it would be interesting to. So you said that the top guys are looking at 94%, on average 75%, three quarters.
It should be more than that for a good guy. I think you're probably looking, so yeah, mid 80s upwards. I'd expect.
Okay, so 0.8 of 3. I'm not going to pretend to do 0.8 of 3.45 in my head. I'm going to type it into Excel over here. Looking at 2.76 successful field goals in this match this evening. So, yeah, the interesting thing that I think I'm going to dig out, or might get the team to have a look at, is what was that last season? Were we getting 2.8 successful field goals a game? Were we getting much fewer? One of two things can happen. The bookmaker's done nothing, which means that the over all of a sudden is going to become a value bet. Or the bookmaker has adjusted, but have they adjusted correctly? Because sometimes you can over-adjust. A little bit like with Erling Haaland just now, where it's very, very tempting to price him defensively because he's scoring so many goals. Then what happens last night? Foden scores first, and it's a lot of value to be had on him if you think that Haaland's overpriced. So that's the interesting angle to have a look at. I think we'll try and sort of grab a little bit of data around about that. Other than the changes in field goals, is there anything else to keep an eye on in the NFL this season?
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting talking points will be going into next season to forecast ahead a little bit. Is, as I mentioned, that the tush push play looks as though there's momentum towards it being banned. So for this season, the teams voted on.
What's that play? Sorry.
So, sorry, yeah, to go into. So, for example, it is the Philadelphia Eagles are the ones who've made it popular, known colloquially as the tush push or the brotherly shove. So it's basically a quarterback sneak play. So it's in short yardage where the quarterback will just try and kind of fall forward to get the yards needed for a first down if you're 1 or 2 yards away. But what the Eagles do is they push their quarterback from behind. So they'll have players behind him pushing, and they'll have their offensive line. Offensive line is really good at timing their forward momentum as well. They actually, a lot of slow motion replays are showing they go slightly early and should have been called for false starts in these plays, but they're so good at it that they get away with it because they get an advantage by such a small amount, microseconds, which helps them get their forward momentum going. They've got a quarterback in Jalen Hurts who can squat 600 pounds, who's really strong at pushing forward as well. So they have this play where whenever they're in short yardage, third or fourth down, need a yard or two to pick up, they will run this play, and it has a really high success rate, I believe over 80%. The Buffalo Bills do it as well with Josh Allen, who's another huge and powerful quarterback. They did it for 2 touchdowns against the Kansas City Chiefs just last week. Allen was kind of pushed into the end zone for 2 scores. And the Eagles against my team, the Giants, earlier this season, they ran it 4 plays in a row down towards the end zone. They did the tush push 4 times in a row. But I think that it's looking like it's going to get voted out of the league. There was a vote on it the previous off season, and it was 2 votes short. I think you needed 2/3 majority to get rule changes through, and it was 2 votes shy of the amount it needed. But there's been so much talk about it this year about how it's not a proper football play, about how it's ugly to watch, and also how it's really difficult to officiate because, like I said, they're getting away with some false starts. And the other week as well against the Giants, there should have been a strip sack fumble which wasn't called properly. It was a big talking point, which I think it's all going to lead towards it being banned next year. So next year you're going to see Philadelphia's 4th down and 3rd down efficiency crash, I'd imagine, and perhaps also teams like the Bills, because what will change is that you will no longer be allowed to push a player from behind, push them forward, which used to be illegal. I think it was 2014 that rule was changed again, with the idea of allowing players to push the pile in the open field. So if a running back goes forward 5 yards and gets clogged up, but he's still on his feet, you can go and push him and get some more forward momentum, pick up a few extra yards. The way it's being used now, at the line of scrimmage, is kind of not what that rule change was introduced with the idea of doing. So I think they're going to change it, and so now you will no longer have those really efficient third and fourth down plays from the teams who have been so good at the tush push. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch, because it was such a big part of the Eagles winning the Super Bowl last year and getting to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. The way they execute this, they have the best offensive line in the league. They've obviously drilled it to death, and they've got to the point where it's hyper efficient, and there are other teams who run it too. So yeah, when that's taken away, that's going to leave a bit of a deficit for them in their game. So it's going to be interesting to see how they make up for that, and whether it affects things like I said, their efficiency, their ability to get fourth downs. So how many first downs they get in games would be another one to look at. And yeah, just how successful they are offensively overall.
Was that 2014 they made that change, did you say?
I believe it's 2014 where they legalized pushing your own players from behind again.
Okay. Because there was an interesting that happened up until then, but almost 10 years in a row from 2005, points went up and up: 41.2, 43, 44, 45. 2013 peaks at 47, 46.8 essentially, which is what it is this season. And it was 2014 when you then had the first year where it sort of dropped a little bit down. I wonder if that was related. And yet again, an example of a fundamental rule change where you can maybe sort of look big picture and think there's going to be fewer points in the match if this happens.
Possibly, yeah. You see it as well with it's again something I'm working on a piece of The Guardian at the moment around fumbles. So around a similar time, the way players were allowed to tackle changed. So you can't lead with your helmet anymore. So it made it harder to force fumbles, because you couldn't hit as hard. You couldn't drive your helmet into the opposing player and try to knock the ball out. But over time, technique and coaching has caught up to make up for that deficit now. So you have people who are really expert at what they call a peanut punch now, where as they're tackling, they try and punch the ball out from the running back. Yeah, so now you see more fumbles again. So that's another thing where the rule changes around that time cause that initial drop off, but then the game adapts and finds new ways of creating success. So yeah, it's probably similar to that sort of thing.
Super Bowl LX, God, I can't do that in my head. 60? Yeah, 60 is at the Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California, meaning it's an awful time for us in the UK. I sort of historically get to half time and I do my best to stay up for it, but I drift off. Are you going to be over there in California? Or are you going to be watching it?
I wouldn't imagine so. I'll be at home. Last year I went to a Super Bowl party with some of my friends, which was really nice. Did some work after it, so yeah, I was up very late. But no, yeah, I'll be watching as a fan. So yeah, it's Santa Clara, outdoor stadium, but you'd imagine not too affected by the winter weather where it is. So that yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that affects scoring.
What I did want to bring in, we haven't done it yet, and I think we'll do that for the Super Bowl, is longest field goal success. So outdoor stadium counts against us, but by the sounds of it, the record you said earlier was broken. It's now 65 yards outdoors. The overall record was 63 yards a couple of years ago. So we're now kicking it further. I say we, I mean I'm not. We're now kicking it further outdoors than we were doing indoors a couple of seasons ago. But give me a line that you would be prepared to go over on for longest field goal in the Super Bowl final this year.
Well, that's it. It's all game state dependent as well, isn't it? So the longest attempts will come at the end of a half or at the end of a game where the risk of a turnover isn't a factor. So if you're attempting to kick from inside your own half effectively, which is what happens with these long range field goals, you're not as worried about giving the other team a short field to go and score because time is running out. So it needs that game state where you need to get the extra points up before the halftime whistle or the end of the game. But yeah, I mean, one of the kickers I spoke to last year for the piece I did for The Guardian said we're going to see a 70-yarder soon. I would be surprised if it came in the Super Bowl, but I wouldn't be surprised to see someone score from 58 plus. You know, you've got some pretty reliable kickers there.
I'm going to give you 55.5. You're going over there, are you?
I'll take the over on that one, yeah.
Okay. And who's going to be in it?
Well, before the season, I went with the Chiefs and the Packers. I'm not convinced I'd stick with the Packers on that one from the NFC now. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if it's the Chiefs and the Eagles again for the third time in 4 years. I know the Chiefs lost to the Bills last weekend, but they've lost to the Bills. I think it's 4 or 5 years in a row now, but they've beaten them every year in the playoffs. So you just seem to have their number when it matters.
Lose them. It's always lose them in the season and beat them in the playoffs is the way
Yeah.
to do it. Yeah. So okay, you're literally going to sit on the fence and give me the same the same Super Bowl that we've had 3 in the last 5. Yeah.
That's what I'll take. Yeah.
Okay, no worries, but I will take your. You said 58. Now we're a long way from it, but I'll take your 58, and I'm going to make a little reminder to make sure that we have a look at what the market line is in the Super Bowl on the beginning of February 2026. Ryan, I really appreciate you joining us on the BashCast this evening for a little bit of insight into the NFL, one of the lesser used edges, because an issue being a lot of people get to Sunday night and they're exhausted from the weekend. But there's a lot to be had, especially when we look at these fundamental changes in field goals. And I'm not going to lie, the UK bookmakers can be quite lazy because of the issue of illiquid markets, meaning they just copy over what happened last season and the season before. It just happens to be a fact. 2023, we were getting 43.6 points per game. 2024, 45.8 points per game. 2025, 46.8 goals a game. Take away the freak year of 2020. This is the highest scoring season so far ever. Well, I say ever, going back 20 years, and let's not tread further than that because it's not like for like at that point. So something to keep an eye on as the season progresses, and definitely field goals as well. Ryan Baldy, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Cheers, Tom.
It's Ryan Baldy, BBC Guardian journalist on the NFL. At Bookie Bashing, we've been working very hard revamping our player props model, but we also have field goals, touchdowns for every game. You can find that under the X Tries XTDs model under tools and in the bet builder. Go and have a look at what you can see in field goals as well, because it sounds like field goals are the kind of thing that are fundamentally changing in the 2025-2026 NFL season. Gambling and chat. 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 I did mention, if you want to catch more from Ryan, he was the author of The Dream Factory Inside the Make or Break World of Football Academies, which was shortlisted for the 2022 Football Book of the Year award. I'm going to circle back to a question that was said. Oh, we have a question in just now, actually, that I'm going to answer live. So I'm not going to have any questions for next time, but that's okay. Do you only bet on golf in stores, Tom, or do you do anything else, not including Haaland, DDHH? To tell you the truth, I only want to bet on Haaland, DDHH. But last night, I did a little video when I was walking the dog, which just ridiculous criticism for. What did the guy say? Like, he knows I'm not a profitable bettor because of the clothes that I'm wearing. Perhaps if I've won so much money, I could take £20 down to the charity store and get myself a new shirt. That's what he said. But Haaland last night, he was priced up in the coupon 5-2, obviously. Made him 2.6, something like that. That's just fair odds for double delight hat-trick, which you have to factor in the equity in him getting the second goal in the match, things like that. So I was going to take 7-4, anything higher. He was cut to 6-4. It was cut to 6-4, and he didn't get the first goal in the match, although he shot and it came off Foden's toe. So they went mega defensive finally, and then he didn't score first. So fewer people, I'm pretty sure fewer people will have been on him at 6-4. It's a very, very low price. I mean, we're getting down to Ronaldo for Portugal in his peak, sort of 6-4. I don't think I've ever seen a player be even money or odds on for first goal scorer. I've got a lot of data. Maybe that's something I'll make a note of. We'll come back to that in the next BashCast. Do I only bet on golf in stores? No. That's all that you see is that I bet on golf in stores because coming up with content is very difficult these days. For the first 8 or 9 years, the videos that we did talked about probability distributions, edges, angles, mathematics, opinions, sometimes right, sometimes we're wrong. But we were very open about what we were doing. And then we had to shut that down, and we couldn't do it because we were a victim of our own success, and we were privy to a number of copycat services, including, rather frustratingly, I talked on my walk with Lucky on Tuesday night about how we publish a database with things like first goal scorer 2+, 3+ odds for Munch and Gladbach versus St. Pauli, because when you look on the exchange, if there is value either to back or to lay, it will not be for very much at all. And if we put this on a tracker, or we made an alert and pushed it out to more than the tiniest handful of people at the same time, then it would be a race to the bottom, all of the value would disappear. And so we don't do that. We deliberately have a database that you have to go and look at, and then you yourself have to go and look at the exchange. Is there an API? No. Is there a tracker? No. It's on purpose. This is the sustainability of the market. So what did we get a heads up about is happening just now? There is a Discord forum with over 1,000 people in it. And I can't remember the name of the forum, but it's something to do with the matched betting forum or something like that. And somebody is just taking any value, even if there's £2 of value on the exchange, and they're posting that bet with our fair odds. And it's our fair odds every single time they're posting it. And they're then posting it to 1,000 people. And so what can we do? It's like, what can we do? I mean, I don't know. Like, obviously, if we just have to stop doing it, then we just have to stop doing it. And then we close our doors and we make it available to the tiny handful of people that are making 6 figures a month, and they can pay us 4 figures. You'd think that the person would be intelligent enough to stop doing what he's doing. So it's just, if you are doing that kind of thing, or even you're in a group of that kind of thing, you have to use your nuance. It's like, it's what you're seeing going to ruin the thing. A little bit like if Brownlee is in doubles at 200 to 1 and his value, how many people can be placing those doubles? So we have a finite number of people at Bookie bashing. But let's just say there was a match betting community that was 30 times larger than us, and they started building a replica golf tracker and pushing doubles. It's not a sustainable thing, and this is the difference between people that have walked the walk and done it themselves and people that just copy it in the hope of making a quick buck over the next few weeks or months, and then seeing it all going away and have to go and copy something else that someone else is doing. It's very frustrating. If I may circle back from this rant to the question, do I only bet on golf? The reason you only see me bet on golf is it's logistically quite a useful thing for me to do on a video, because I can go and film it on a Wednesday night and then edit it on a Thursday. I didn't do it today. I'm going to have to do it tomorrow morning on a Friday. But even on a Friday, you know, that Brownlee, I think, was outside of the cut on the Thursday when the video went up. So you can do that. And then the event is still in play, and there's some interest in what's going to happen between the video going up and Sunday night. When I did them for football, sometimes I'd be like, I'd record, like, my edge was after team news. I'd have an hour or two, place the bet, record the video, edit the video, upload the video, which in this bleeding office can take forever because I'm a long way from the router. By the time the video's up, I might have been talking about first goal scorer. The video goes live, first goal scorer's already happened. If I haven't won, it's boring. And if I have won, I'm after timing. So that didn't work. And for Lucky 15s and horse racing, exactly the same thing. I ended up like reading long lists of Lucky 15s that I was on that particular day. But golf does work because it's a little bit of a longer time span. So that's why it looks like I'm only betting on golf. Mostly I'm betting on football coupons. That's the primary avenue that I do. And they're also like the worst for variance. That you can go months and months and months football coupons just losing, and then you just have like 2 or 3 weekends you go, and it pays for all of those months. I often have the same team in multiple coupons, which is going to contribute to that. So that's the primary, and then the secondary would be horse racing lucky 15s. Handful of things I'll do outside of well, actually, William Hill Machines Your Odds, track quite a few of the markets in there. Top tip, markets such as a team to have the most goals in each half and a team to have the most corners in each half, or a team to win and have the most shots on target, those kind of things. A little bit of correlation in them. That there can be a spread of opinion. There can be a lot of value in them. There was a very decent one with Kazakhstan, Wales, Kazakhstan. That was like over 200% EV, and it was live on the SSBT in William Hill. So there's those. I like top scorer in tournaments, but it's something I model and don't put on bookie bashing, so probably not something to talk about. But ahead of like Euros, World Cups and stuff like that, we'll sit and have a look at particular goal scorers, try and look at the games, try and have a look at minutes played, come up with an expected number of goals, and then throw that into a Skellum distribution and try and work out, particularly by team, like who's going to be the top scorer for, Romania. Because sometimes they might only get 0 or 1 or 2 goals, and then could have a penalty taker that only takes penalties and doesn't score goals. All of a sudden, you're 33-1 for top goal scorer. Each way is looking like a hell of a bet. So there can be loads of angles in that, but that's more, we have a Skellum calculator at bookie bashing, but there's no real means of giving people those expectancies because, again, 2 or 3 people bet on those markets, odds get cut. It's no good for anyone, so it's very difficult to push them out mass like that. But yeah, day-by-day stuff or week-by-week stuff. Yeah, it's Haaland. I confess I was on Voltamardi yesterday, didn't get it. I often talk about the ones that won. I was on Rodriguez because I was there before team news for Wrexham and didn't even realise he was injured, so now I've got to go and collect my £100. I went up to Nottingham to play poker at Dusk Till Dawn on Saturday night, and on the way there I stopped at Betfred. I got Haaland, a couple £100. That returned 1,000 because he got double delight against wherever they played. I had Ekitike. Now, whilst I was on the poker tournament, seriously, as I was on the table, it was a really fun table. Everyone was joking, laughing, talking, having a drink. I showed everyone my slip because Liverpool match is on in the background. Ekitike scores first. Everyone cheers. I get a round of drinks in, and then VAR and called offside. Because the waitress was there. I ordered the drinks. Everyone was like, "Yeah, I'll have a beer," and then goal was chalked off, and then Salah scored first. Brilliant. So well done me on that. And I was on a third one, and he didn't get it. I was on someone in the Spurs game, Spurs Chelsea. Can't remember who, but it was like 15-2, so it doesn't matter. But the only person that's getting them these days is Haaland, except for when Fred go too defensive and price him at 6-4, and then he doesn't score first. So it's like even when he doesn't score first, he's saving us money. So that's just answer it. That's why. How many cross doubles do you do each week on golf? I'll answer. I'll answer any further questions on the next BashCast. I'm going to save them up. We should be in 3 weeks. That's going to be back to November the 27th. Can you believe? Right. This is the legal hour on the BashCast. You are listening to official legal advice. Don't worry, Duncan. It's not official legal advice. Here's my first point of note. I am a chartered professional. Duncan is a chartered professional. I am chartered by the Institute of Highways Transportation, or as my troll said, he's got a trucker's license. By that, I would go into Westminster and I would take a team and some models for a large consultancy firm, and I would advise on infrastructure spend on the M25 and things like that, bridges and all kinds of nonsense and life cycle management. Duncan's a chartered accountant. Through our professional chartered institutes, one, we're not allowed to be fraudsters. For everyone that says that I'm held to a reputable level that if I am, I'll be stripped of my chartership and banged up for rights. Secondly, we're not allowed to give legal advice outside of a domain that we're very familiar with or that we know for sure. We're just not allowed to. We can get in trouble for doing it. Ask any chartered accountant for legal advice beyond what their expertise is. You're not going to get it, right? Legal advice. I have actually talked to someone for looking at a defamation claim for somebody who is continuing to call me a fraudster and a scammer over and over again. £900 for the consultation. Although, from what I've submitted so far, it looks like I would have a case and I would be able to sue. And then they sit behind an anonymous account, but there's this thing called the Norwich Protocol where they can actually make the social media companies tell them who is behind the anonymous accounts. And sometimes I've said this to the trolls and they laugh, you can't find me. Actually, we can. I do wonder if there's a particularly litigative. There's someone that's very trigger happy with litigation. I wonder if he spent that money on me. I was always very careful of the words that I said. Never used the word fraudster or scammer about this particular person, Rob. So when I'm asked for legal advice, if I sometimes sound like I'm being a little bit wishy-washy or not being precise, this is exactly the reason, because I'm not literally allowed to give it, but I can describe some things that I've experienced and gone through myself. And the question was, I'd like to hear more about the legal actions that you've taken. Have you ever detailed those in the podcast? Were they all major high street firms? First one, yes, they were all major high street firms. They were Betfred and they were William Hill. And a lot of the William Hills, because there was multiple William Hills, a lot more than Betfred, they were the great sports offers. These were 25 offers that they ran up until 2019, 2020. You go in, there's 25 different ones. Some of them were like 200, 250% EV, but not because they were mistakes, just because William Hill were very bad at working out the odds of things like over 53 goals in the Finnish leagues and stuff like that, right? So we just, we're talking about we're betting at 6-4. We think they should be evens. So that's not a palp. That's just a difference of opinion. And there's no other bookmaker pricing it up and there's no exchange. So it's us pricing it up. It's William Hill pricing it up. We have a difference of opinion. It's not like William Hill wants it to be 2-1 and we're betting at 200-1 because they put 2 zeros in. It's none of that. It's not a typing mistake. It's a difference of opinion. So let me give you 2 examples. Now, the problem with the small claims court, somebody told me recently, last week in fact, that William Hill had one of these offers on the SSBT. I don't bet on them because I think there's something like £10 max or £100 liability max or in that region. So it's just I can't get enough money down on them to make a difference to the levels that I bet at, right? But it was Borussia Mönchengladbach, who's the most popular guy at a Borussia Mönchengladbach match. It's the guy that goes, give us a B. Billy Connolly. Borussia Mönchengladbach and RB Leipzig both to win and all 4 teams to score. So the win in BTTS in both matches 10-1. And it's literally called a boosted ACCA. Place the bet, print it out, says 10-1, goes in, puts it into the machine, gets paid out at 13-2. That's scandalous. It's scandalous. 10-1 to 13-2 isn't a palp, especially on a double, because fine margins with which one of them was wrong. Also, it's a boost. It's a boost that hasn't got any liquidity on the exchanges. It's just it's so cheap. Whatever decision making was behind changing the price. It was changed. It was printed on the ticket and then changed after it won. You have to wonder how many times they change losers, because no one ever finds out, do they? Do they have a contact? Oh, you know what? We changed the price so you can have a little bit of your stake back. Never happens. And it infuriates me. And he was asking what to do about it. Well, the problem is you've bet a tenner. I don't know how many times he's bet a tenner. But for £100 or £200, we're talking now about a difference between 25 or 50 quid payout. He said it's the principle. And I know it's the principle. But what are you going to do? Like, you stick your head above the parapet, you are at risk of them not laying a bet with you ever again. So, for me, and this is why it is incredibly frustrating, I was fortunate enough to be betting at a level to win £5,000 generally on a win, where if they didn't pay me, or they didn't pay me all of it, it was suddenly became worth my time to go to court. For exactly the same bet, how many people that were betting to win 50 quid or £5 got paid less or not at all and couldn't be bothered to fight it? It's actually not fair because I have the resource to fight it. Whereas the majority of low-staking punters are getting scammed by William Hill doing this. And it is a scam. It's awful. But they're not going to do anything about it because it's not worth the effort of going to IBIS, which I wouldn't do. And they're biased towards the bookmakers as far as I'm concerned. Or going to the small claims court, which is a bit of a palaver and actually has cost involved as well. You're just not going to do it for a 5 or a 50 quid. So we're talking about bets for £5,000 or more. I'll give you 2 that I had to dig them up because my memory fades me. It's been a long, long time. These are both great sports offers, so they'll be 2020 or before. One I won, one I lost in different fashions. The one that we won, it was a bet in the region of over 17 goals in Wednesday's MLS, Serie A, Brazilian Serie A, and Argentina Primera games. Now, when you look at those games, some cars very angry with each other outside my window. Mark will be disappointed. He told me to put curtains on here to dampen the outside noise. Hope you didn't hear that. When you look at it didn't detail the matches. It said MLS, Argentina Primera, and Brazilian Serie A. And when you look at it, there's like 6 matches, 2 in each league, or 8 matches. Some leagues are, but the Brazilian ones are spread out. And in terms of time, so there's like one at 1 a.m., one at 3 a.m., one at 5 a.m. And it won by a goal, by a single goal. So we go and collect our £5,000 and they say, oh, it's lost. I said, no, it didn't. Look, it won. They said, no, it lost. So we argue. And through William Hill's internal, management, they get back to us and they say they're not including the one game that kicked off at 1 a.m. They're saying 1 a.m. wasn't the Wednesday, it was the previous day. I was like, wait, what are you talking about? And they're counting that game as having kicked off on the previous day due to a time zone issue. And actually, when you look at the coupon, when you picked up the coupons back then, some games were listed as kicking off at 11:59 p.m. So something in William Hill's system wants that game to be on the Tuesday, whereas in reality it's kicking off on the Wednesday because no match ever kicks off at 11:59. So we point this out. It's like, look, you've got the kickoff at 11:59 p.m. That never happens. No match around the world kicks off at 11:59. It kicked off at 2 o'clock in the morning. That game counts. And they just stubbornly said, no, it doesn't. It wasn't one of those games. So it was a disagreement over the descriptor of the bet. It wasn't the price, it was the descriptor. It wasn't like it was a palp, it wasn't like we were getting paid out at lower odds. They just said it lost. There was not over 17 goals in this group of games because this game that you thought was included with it, we think is not included with it. And when it came down to was the game on a Wednesday, that comes down to what time zone are you sitting in. In the UK it was not, in Brazil it was. It was rather messy. And it probably did require an arbitrator. So we took it to the small claims court after we couldn't get anywhere from William Hill. The very interesting thing about that I remember is that we prepared our case. And then we got all the way to where you have the judge. And then William Hill just didn't show up. They just didn't show up. Now, they probably were never going to show up. Right? But what they do is they push people all the way to having to put a case together and turn up on the day. and then we won because there was no contest. And that, again, felt really scummy. It's like you never had any intention of defending yourselves, because I wonder how many people give up before they get to the point that we got to, where we put the donkey work into doing that. So I felt like they're playing games. They're just like, push them as far as they'll go. And if they're really going to go as far as creating a case and putting it in front of a small claims court judge, at that point, we'll just give up with no contest. I was like, if you were going to do that, just pay us out in the first place. So we won. In terms of my group, I mean, I wasn't on this on my own. I had a runner. What we did in our spreadsheet was like, we just made that a losing bet because we didn't know if we were going to get paid out it or not. And what you can't do is you can't have the stress of, is it going to be paid out? Is it not going to be paid out? So we just made the decision. It was quite good mentally. It was like, this is now a game, and we're just going to say it lost. In our spreadsheet, that's a loss. If it wins, we're not going to add it to the spreadsheet. We're going to do something with it. We're going to do something nice with it. And it did win, and so we got a box, like a VIP box at Worcester Warriors when they were back in the Premiership. And then we treated wives and girlfriends. So it was a bit of a stupid idea to bring both wife and girlfriend, but at least they got on with each other. We treated them to a box. We got a 3-course meal. We didn't get any alcohol on the house, as I remember, and we got some private seats outside the box, and we were able to watch the game. So it was like nice. It's like okay, so that bet's lost. Whatever, it doesn't matter. And if it wins, we'll do something nice. And so we did something nice. That was example number 1. Example number 2. It's again. So this is one of the points I want to sort of make across. I don't bet on palps. I've seen palps and I avoid them because, as discussed earlier in the BashCast, don't see it as fair game, but actually I don't see it as longevity in terms of your relationship with the bookmaker anyway. So don't bet on palps. But this was over, let's just say there was a goal in each of the French League 1 first halves. So there's 6 matches in French League 1, and they won a goal in the first half of each of them, and 25-1. It might have been 2 goals, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. That's the structure of the bet. There's 6 matches in French League 1 on this particular Sunday or Saturday, and I won a goal in the first half of each of them. And I think we made it about 15-1 fair odds, and it was 25-1, so that's a decent bet. That's probably a little bit more liquid than normal. Like, you could have gone out there and looked at other bookmakers and realized, wow, that's quite a big bet. But genuinely, these things were called great sports offers. It's like, oh, okay, well, 12-1 elsewhere, 25-1 at William Hill. That's nice. So again, we 200 quid, 25-1, £5,000, going to collect it. And I think they wanted to pay us like £1,000 instead of not even that, like 600 quid. They wanted to pay out 3-1 instead of 25-1. So what are you doing? And their answer was nonsensical. Their answer was, well, there were only 6 games, but we thought that Paris Saint-Germain were going to be playing. However, Paris Saint-Germain were playing Bayern Munich in the final of the Champions League. Couple of things. One, how long have we known that Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain were playing in the final of the Champions League? Like, the semi-finals at least a week before. Is it longer? This is a printed out slip. This one actually wasn't a great sports offers, but it was a printed out of today's or this week's offers. And they printed the slip out. They could have pulled the slip at any time. Even when the slip was printed out, there must have been a massive risk that Paris Saint-Germain were going to be in the final because they were in the semi-final, of course. So, like, how long before did they drop the ball? Like, there's no way we could have known that they thought that there was another match that should have been included in that list. Like, someone's probably made a mistake because 25-1 was very high, although not unusually high, but not a palp mistake, just like a stupid mistake. Like, there's a mistake where there's no way the punter should have known. So anyway, I wanted my £5,000. They wanted to pay out 600 quid. I'll take it to court. This time they show up, and god damn some of the arguments that they used. And they say, we only take bets off recreational punters, which the judge was not happy with, that argument at all. Now, I wasn't the only person that I know that was on the bet because I run Bookie Bashing. We put the bet up at Bookie Bashing. A number of syndicates within Bookie Bashing were on the bet. They also were offered to be paid out at lower prices by William Hill. And they also took William Hill to court for exactly the same bet. But William Hill fought every single one of them. And you had a case here, a case here, a case here, a case here. And would you believe these punters won, but we had a judge that sided with William Hill. And while she laughed out the clause where they're only taking money from recreational punters and so shouldn't have taken money from us, they did side that with William Hill that it was an honest mistake that Paris Saint-Germain should have been a game that was included in there, and there was no way that they could have known possibly that they would have been playing this tiny little game in the Champions League final against Bayern Munich. So it's kind of random. It's like we won that, won no contest. We lost another one in front of the judge, which was contested, and other people won and we didn't. And at Betfred, there was one. It was kind of a stupid one. It was a coupon where I don't think we noticed at the time because I don't look at the individual lines because we just tracked the whole coupon at once. But they duplicated a set of odds over 2 rows. But the odds weren't that far off what we thought they would have been on the duplicated row anyway. And they were like 4 or 5 to 1, but they were in multiples, which meant that we were expecting to be paid out thousands. And then they were like, oh no. But then the odds they wanted to cut them to were egregious. Let's just say they duplicated to the 4 to 1. We thought, okay, they should be 7 to 2 or maybe 3 to 1. So it's not awful. It's a big price. It's not awful. And I think they wanted to pay out at evens. What's the evens? We dug out a load of market values for them, what they were elsewhere. And that was another one where we took the bookmaker to court, had to go all the way there, and then they just didn't show up. So the no-show right at the last stage means that it's not contested and you get paid out by default there. And there was one last one. I didn't want to do this one because I know at the time, but there was this one was stupid. We're going to pop back to William Hill. They said, was it 3 converted tries in the match or a series of matches? And there were exactly 3, but one of them was a penalty try. If you look at the rules of a bookmaker when they publish them, go to Bet365. Now, this, by the way, is 5 years ago. Perhaps it's changed now. But you could go to the rules of the bookmaker, and it said if there is a penalty try, that counts as a converted try. We know there's no conversion, but actually there's no opportunity of a conversion. It is the full amount of points. And so a penalty try is counted as a converted try. It says it explicitly at Betfred. It says it explicitly at Bet365 when you dig into the rules of rugby union. And then you look at William Hill, well, they don't say anything. It's not that they say that it isn't a converted try. It's just they don't reference it. They don't mention it in the rules. So we won this bet, and then they didn't pay us out, and then we just looked. Every other bookmaker stipulates in the rules. It's just the thing is that you don't. And that was one that we fought them. They didn't want to pay out. We said we were going to go to court, and I think they did back down in that occasion before it ended up in the small claims court. So, yeah. Anyway, that's the history of a few of the legal cases. I never really considered IBAS. I do think that they're biased towards the bookmaker. That horrible case that I talked about at the beginning of the BashCast, where I needed a reference number from Coral, put me off. And the issue going back to this Borussia Mönchengladbach and RB Leipzig, both to win and all 4 to score, that isn't fair. And there should be an independent arbitrator that comes in and says, you're not allowed to change the price from 10 to 1 to 13 to 2. Yes, there could be teams out there to win £5,000, although to be fair, you'd have to be on that bet 50 times, 500 times in order to win £5,000 if there's a £10 limit on the bet. No, 50 times. Sorry, it's getting late. So you'd have to be on that bet 50 times. Then you have to explain why you're on the same bet 50 different times. And that's going to get a little bit messy. So no one's going to technically have £5,000 liability on it. So no one's going to be staking high enough to go into court, which means William Hill could just literally pick any of these winning bets and go, you know what, we can just enhance our profits by shaving a quarter of the odds off this, and who's going to complain? The person that raised this with me said, what do you do about it? And I'm like, I don't know. Honestly, it's like, suck it up. And that sucks. That doesn't feel fair. And I think they said, well, it's the principle at this point, and I get it. I get it. It is the principle. They shouldn't be allowed to do it. It's not fair. It is scummy. But the bigger picture is that we want to continue to go back in next week. We want to go and place a bet, and therefore we're just going to have to suck it up. Gambling and chat. 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 How many segments didn't I get around to? I didn't get around to Polymarket. I didn't get around to Why You're a Prick. A quick one on Why You're a Prick. That was going to be about me. And that was going to be, if you ever want to feel like you're the sole voice in a room, do a video about how you're laid bets and not banned. Because you will get an email from every single person that's ever been knocked back or banned. And to a certain extent, I think I probably had it coming. I wanted to do a longer segment on this, and maybe I will do next time. But the principle is, perhaps I shouldn't have been so glee. And the argument I should have made is that it's a lot easier to get on in shops and continue to get on without being restricted, because it's automated online where there is manual intervention in shops. Probably that would have been a more succinct argument, rather than say, I haven't been banned placing bets, because that just whitens everybody up that has. So sorry if you got wound up. Didn't get around to my credibility. Has it finally been ruined? Which I think I've carried on now for a month and a half, and maybe we'll continue to carry that on. The person that claimed that my credibility has now been ruined is perhaps waiting, or probably not even watching or listening, but perhaps waiting in the wings to hear what I say about that. And finally, golf doubles. I'll just do this very quickly because there's 2 minutes left of the BashCast this evening. Smart Betting Club did a golf doubles special on the same week that I walked into Ladbrokes and went up to the machine and saw Jungwon Lee as value at 200 to 1. He could have been 250, but let's just call it 200 for the sake of it. And Michael Brennan as value at 66 to 1. And so I bet on them both as singles to win, from memory, £3,000. And then I had a look at the tracker, and there was like 3 plus EV bets from the one tournament and 2 from the other tournament, because I was looking at it at a time where the markets were quite liquid. It wasn't my traditional Wednesday 5 to 6 p.m. I think it was Tuesday afternoon, just after the tracker had gone live. So I was like, I could do those 6 doubles 3 times 2, which on a £1 each way bet will be £12. And I could probably bet, because it's now like, I could probably bet a tenner, because that's 120 quid. But my minimum, like my traditional is 2. And by the way, I'm going to say it was 225 to 1 because I've done the sums before. So had I done my traditional 2 quid and just gone and done it, that would have returned £31,590 and 40 pence. But with only 6 doubles on that slip, I probably would have seen if the machine had taken £10. I know I would have got that on at Bet365 online, Betfred with a cap of £50,000 there. But had Ladbrokes machines taken it, and I've seen them before, it would have paid out £157,952. And I stood and looked at the machine and looked at my watch and thought, I'm late for getting my children from school. I'm going to have another opportunity later. And I think part of me thought those players will probably still be plus EV then, and more players will be as well. And so I turned around and I walked out of the Ladbrokes. And I left in there £157,952, whatever it is that you're betting on. Please do make sure it's Erling Haaland. We'll be back with another BashCast on Thursday, November the 27th, 2025.